6 of the best conspiracy theories. Subliminal advertising. Ever been watching a movie and suddenly get the munchies? Or sitting on your sofa watching TV and suddenly get the irresistible urge to buy a new car? If so, you may be the victim of a subliminal advertising conspiracy. Proponents of this conspiracy theory include Wilson Bryan Key, author of Subliminal Seduction, and Vance Packard, author of The Hidden Persuaders, both of whom claim that subliminal, subconscious, messages in advertising were rampant and damaging. Though the books caused a public outcry and led to FCC hearings, much of both books have since been discredited, and several key studies of the effects of subliminal advertising were revealed to have been faked. Getting a person to see something for a split second is easy. Filmmakers do it all the time. Watch the last few frames in Hitchcock's classic Psycho. Getting a person to buy or do something based on that split second is another matter entirely. Roswell crash and cover-up. The Roswell Daily Record from July 9, 1947, details the Roswell UFO incident. There is one fact that almost all skeptics and believers agree on: something crashed on a remote ranch outside of Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. Yet the best evidence suggests that it was neither a flying saucer nor a weather balloon, but instead a high-altitude, top-secret military balloon dubbed Project Mogul. As it turns out, descriptions of the wreckage first reported by the original eyewitnesses very closely match photos of the Project Mogul balloons, down to the silvery finish and strange symbols on its side. The stories about crashed alien bodies did not surface until decades later, and in fact no one considered the Roswell crash as anything extraterrestrial or unusual until 30 years later, when a book on the topic was published. There was indeed a cover-up, but it did not hide a crashed saucer. Instead, it hid a Cold War-era spying program. The Satanic Panic. For years during the 1980s and 1990s, America became convinced that an underground network of Satanists was working together to kidnap, torture and abuse children. This idea was popularized in the 1980 book Michelle Remembers, co-written by a Canadian psychiatrist and the patient he eventually married, Ethics Red Flag, in which the eponymous Michelle recovers memories of supposed ritual satanic abuse conducted by her mother. In 1983, the panic exploded with the McMartin preschool trial, in which a California parent accused daycare owners of sexually abusing her son. After 7 years, the daycare owners were eventually acquitted or had the charges dismissed. Chemtrails. As airplanes travel, they leave behind them long water condensation trails called contrails. These cold-like tracks dissipate quickly. But to some conspiracy theorists, these condensation trails are much more nefarious. The chemtrails conspiracy theory holds that condensation trails are full of other chemicals that scientists and governments are seeding into the atmosphere. It might be biological warfare or population control or geoengineering or an attempt to manipulate the weather. Researchers who study things like clouds' impact on global temperatures are often harassed by chemtrails believers, who think they're part of a large-scale conspiracy to secretly spray unknown chemicals into the atmosphere, according to Harvard University's David Keith. A 2016 study even debunked chemtrails scientifically, finding no evidence of unusual contrails or unexplained contamination in the environment. But true believers aren't swayed. Barack Obama birtherism. Some conspiracies, like chemtrails, percolate in the background of certain communities, never really penetrating the larger public. The Barack Obama birtherism conspiracy is one of the latter. Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States, was born in 1961 in Honolulu, Hawaii. But as soon as Obama began his campaign for president in 2008, birthers began to circulate the conspiracy theory that Obama had actually been born in Kenya, the country of his father. To combat the conspiracies, Obama not only had to release a copy of his birth certificate in 2008, he had to follow up with the release of the original long-form document in 2011, contrary to the hospital's usual policy of issuing computer copies of birth certificates as acceptable identification. The 2011 release reduced the number of Americans who believed in birtherism, according to Gallup polling. But many conservative political activists and pundits raised their profiles by advocating for birtherism. Among them, Donald Trump, who is at the soon-to-be president. COVID and 5G. Anti-lockdown conspiracy theorists and coronavirus deniers protest in Trafalgar Square in London against the government and mainstream media who, they say, are behind disinformation and untruths about the COVID-19 pandemic, on August 29, 2020. There are conspiracies about the origin of the virus as well as basically every government's reactions. A distrust of Big Pharma, fomented for years by alternative medicine advocates like Kevin Trudeau, best-selling author of Natural Cures They Don't Want You to Know About, a textbook conspiratorial title if there ever was one, have also fed into conspiracies about medical treatment and vaccination. One of the honor conspiracies mixes long-standing fears of 5G wireless technology with fears about the virus. According to the COVID 5G conspiracy, electromagnetic frequencies from cell phone towers undermine the immune system, making people sick with COVID, researchers reported in 2020 in the journal Media International Australia. Another conspiracy theory claims that the COVID-19 vaccines contain tracking chips that connect to 5G networks so that the government, or possibly billionaire and vaccine philanthropist Bill Gates, can survey everyone's movements. As CNBC points out, 5G chips are too large to fit through a vaccine syringe, and even the smallest RFID chips that could fit require a power source that couldn't make the squeeze. Birds aren't real. The Birds Aren't Real conspiracy is a movement developed by Peter McKindo, 23, who started spreading the idea in 2017. Until a December 2021 interview in the New York Times, McKindo stayed in character as a true believer, insisting in media interviews and online that birds aren't real, but rather they are surveillance drones made by the U.S. government. Birds Aren't Real has a staff, it has organized real-life protests, it bought real-life billboards, and it emblazoned vans with their claim. Birds Aren't Real is not a shallow satire of conspiracies from the outside. It is from the deep inside. The experiment revealed that conspiracies sometimes grow by credulity. Local media sometimes reported on Birds Aren't Real as if it was something young people really believed rather than an elaborate joke. Birds Aren't Real organizers hope the joke will become a force for good by exposing all the ways misinformation thrives. Yes, we have been intentionally spreading misinformation for the past 4 years, but it's with a purpose.